Good afternoon, Abbotsford residents. Happy Easter. I'm Mr. Pelican. I'm running for your Commander-in-Chief. Before I begin today's podcast, I'd like to touch on a few things. First of all, Abbotsford's very grateful, and me, myself, am very thankful to the mission men and women in the RCMP. Without their help, their knowledge, and their wisdom and insight to what was taking place, Henry Brown would have accomplished what he did. Would have put me in the morgue, or forced criminal charges, or drug trafficking or something on me to get me out of the way. Knowing that his son told everything that was going on. Darren Braun was a proving officer under his dad, which was illegal, flashing to the RCMP right away. Oh, he's using his son for all the dirty job sites. The rest of it was easy to put together through Darren Braun, how MLA's offices, Ed Fast and Mike DeYoung were tied together. But without the help of the Mission RCMP, this would have never been possible on the corruption that laid in the Abbotsford Police. The Mission RCMP knew when Mike Sears covered Henry's hit and run that right now Mike Sears was under Henry's thumb and how many people at the top were running our private police. The Mission RCMP knew the constant beat down on me every day with stopping and drinking and driving and everything else, that this was a move to get you out of town. And that was being done from the back players that stand to lose or go to jail for insider trading. This is very true. I want to say today, Abbotsford and myself are very thankful to the Mission RCMP, and this is why I lobby for the RCMP to take over Abbotsford, because the RCMP don't care if you're an MLA, an MP, you're Mr. Pelican, you're a mayor, or who you are. They're going to hold the law and do their job. The Abbotsford police weren't doing that. Since they weren't doing that, you could see the problems they're in, and they're in over their head, figuring, oh, you know, I got some people at the back, maybe the Attorney General of BC will bail me out, friends of friends of friends. And they're running from MLA's office to MP's office, crawling on the floor, then they're making speeches. I'm Colin Watts. My guys live in this community. Their kids go to school. We really about a family in this. These are all bullshit things of a manipulation to get the light off them. I told you when I started this for Abbotsford residents, I worked for the best. I told you, Ledcor, Intertech, Cressy, Mondial, Stuart Olson, Peter Wall Financial. But the man that took me by the hand and taught me the most was Amicon Mike Dakota. Mike Dakota taught me what insider trading, bribing city officials will do. It'll put my company in trouble and I'll lose everything. Play all by the rules, go by permits, go for everything in zoning. This wasn't taking place. You could probably figure out now, of all the videos I did, this is a mob running Abbotsford. A complete mob, as Pierre Poilievre said it to me at Clark Freightways, the M&Ms, the Mennonite mob. When you go to your MP is not supposed to be tied to your mayor or to your police department and shield them, especially when a guy got in his car and tried to kill you. Especially when a police officer says drop videos and lawsuits of Henry having counsel in his house, or I will personally bury you, Keelan Olenoff. That there sends the Abbotsford police force, its Safety Standards Act, to take statements and talk to witnesses and now kick the officer off the force. It wasn't. They were all buddies. They get together, they hug around Walmart, they beat people, and their gun goes to their head, and we'll have somebody that'll investigate and they'll get it off of me because I was doing it for the politician. What am I doing here on Ron Funk of Diverse? I want to make today's statement very clear. This is Yuir, the man running for your Conservative Party. I showed you that he tagged up with BC1, and why did he do it? BC1 is very clear, and I made it clear to you that they're going to hold his feet to the fire. And so for Abbotsford voters for the Conservative and BC1, it's the best thing that could have happened. It's the very best. And it's about time we put this province in voters. But Yuir is about the common man, the common person, the families and everything. He's not about political insights and special effort treatments and rich, lavish friends walking over community and taxpayers paying for it. This is what's been happening. And he's about making sure that the common person gets put front, the voter. And this is why they're hell-bent on trying to railroad this man and try to stop him, and trying to stop BC1. I want to make something clear to you today. Ron Fonka Diverse is Henry's partner, the CEO. It was Darren Braun, his own son, showed me what the bureaucrats were doing for his dad as mayor to change the zoning on that, to hide the development. But his dad had Rick Rakes, the former pro editor, tied to the Abbotsford News, Tyler Olson, Vicky Hopes, and Ken, that he brought on board, Darren Braun said, because the newspaper couldn't survive. Not to scandalize him or make any newspaper reports that he did this with his son. So he basically was sealing and controlling Abbotsford from seeing it while he was doing his dirty deals. I showed you the rocks on Gladys Avenue. Let me explain to you from a developer's point of view. You need sales, and you need a show suite, and you need your clients to walk in with their families and say, look, and I'm not going to spend $300,000 to $600,000, even though it's a nice location with the homeless here and needles here and all the violence. So you need to get rid of them to show your customer that this is a good place to live, close to the malls, close to the brick, close to everything. You can have them, but if you got these other things beside you, nobody's going to buy it. It's like living in Iran where you're being bombed. Let's live there. It's a nice location. So what they did on taxpayers' dollars, went and put rocks where the homeless were to get them out of here, to help the developer, and you went on the hook for it. Millions of dollars. Ross was doing it. Ross and his Abbotsford First, that old Henry Braun. You're in, you might as well finish it. Costing taxpayers millions of dollars to help a developer. Illegal is illegal, whether it's fentanyl, whether it's job. What was taking place in the city, the South Asians were getting pushed in the corner by the discrimination and race system that was taking place. Even on our police force, on the police board, they weren't allowed. Eric Nivel told you about that. And they were backlogged up for years and years and years of not getting permits for their houses. Because pressure and for treatment, political insiding, and big construction companies were tying up your city. For them to have elaborate cars and houses and Lamborghinis and everything illegally on your dime. And this is what they were doing. And it was costing Abbotsford taxpayers hundreds of thousands. But Henry Brown and his friends were benefiting off of it all illegal. But Henry had the Abbotsford police to threaten him. Then there was no infractions by bylaw. There was no infractions by the police. They abused the roads, and it just carried on. And now the sympathy is, poor Ron Funk, look at him. He's almost there. Look at him. Funkster's ready. Oh, you can? There's such a shortage of houses when the Funkster Meister. This is why we need a commander and a chief. There was David Eby that went after clubhouses. They were illegal. This took from taxpayers' bank account that was a cash cow for this man, where other developers have to pay and work and it takes them years to get stuff through. They changed the zoning. The councils were collaborating like they did on Cooper's Farm. The mayor and council ran his signs front and center when developers knew, oh, Ross Siemens owes Ron Funk. He's got to let him get away with everything. He paid him to get him in. And that way, everything. Then Ron Funk's team went into Dave Sidhu's office, the city councilor, which owns a newspaper, the Capriccia. Dave Sidhu was the RCMP, said, doesn't Dave got a podcast I want you to see, Mr. Pelican? You can hold me accountable. All illegal. When these big boys came into this town, they knew that this town was being run by a mob. But you need a central, top nervous system to hold this. And you know what that was? Take a guess what that was. The Abbotsford Police. Under the Abbotsford Private Police, Henry pointed the board. His brother was on it, and Darren Brown showed it all, how Mike Sir and everybody was on it, and you could see from everything they were doing. When I do podcasts, you can see 90% of my podcasts when I'm doing way out on locations when you phone me, you could see as soon as I light up at that podcast, there's an Abbotsford police driving by. It's not coincidence. Some of the Abbotsford guys that have been let go and now are on the bottom said, hey, your license plate is tied to your phone. So when they GPS your license plate to see where your truck is, they can use their database to tie to your phone. So I would give you advice like this as a politician. They're out to get your campaign. I'd unhook my phone from my license plate now, and I'd use a different phone, like a burner phone or a throwaway phone, because this ain't about policing. This is about a police force that's running politics, and it needed to stop, and it needed to come to the end. I showed you the Mackenzie Bog. I showed you the Cooper's Farm. I showed you this. But this man is about the common BC resident, family, hardworking BC Canadian. He's not about this. And he knew that this was political influence. This was done when the Abbotsford residents walked into the MLA's office, Mike DeYoung, and the sitting MLA, and told him. He said, you cut a deal with Henry, meaning Mike was already in the doors with him. That is why Abbotsford police didn't raid him at the height of the coronavirus on Bell Road with all the alcohol, 66 people, and drugs and everything, with Dave Sadoo to endorse him, and didn't go after him that you people are driving home drunk, George Perry and everybody, because they were going to run Mike in the federal MP for the Conservatives. This is why Ed Fast shut his bloody mouth, the federal Conservatives. So it was like this, that it was given like this, that, can you imagine? The NDP, the Conservatives, and the Liberals are all in office, elected you, and they're watching each other and holding each other accountable. Here in Abbotsford they were. Henry Brown befriending them all and made it as a front, like he did with city councils. Well, Kelly Shaw is a probation officer, Mark Workington's a lawyer, Les Barkman worked for the garbage company. Oh, Dave Lowens, don't forget Dave Lowens. Dave Lowens was a school guy. Oh, don't worry. And he put that out there, believing that Abbotsford believed that these people's shields and their badges were there, and they were mistrusting and abusing it, and they got out of hand, and they were carrying out acts. But when they covered up Henry's attempted murder and Henry's threats, that's where they went wrong. It sparked the spark through law enforcement of the Mission RCMP, through Abbotsford residents, to all help, because that's what they do. At the end of the day, it's about the human life. And they didn't care about the Abbotsford police. They didn't care about politicians, and they wheeled in here. So I want to make sure that all Abbotsford voters and BC Conservatives, if you're true blue, that you understand this today, that this man here is about the common folk. And he's about the common folk, not political influence, insiders, preferential treatment, and he's guaranteeing that his MLAs won't be sitting on the laps of mayors, won't be sitting on the laps. They'll be working for you, guaranteeing. That guarantee is so strong from a guy like this, that what Harman Bangdu did with taking his staff and sending him into Caroline Elliott to help her on her campaign, that's not elected into your Conservative Party, doesn't work for your Conservative Party, and it's a very dangerous thing to the Conservative Party, because they elected Harman Bangdu, and he can take information out of that office, and he's helping Caroline Elliott. That's an insider running. You're not supposed to. You're not supposed to be doing any of it. This is what they were doing in the city to help Ross. Gabriel went out and hold the electoral officer, took other signs down, all inciting loading. It was Darren Braun that laid it all out, and I took it to the RCMP. This man is guaranteeing. A man like Harman Bangdu won't be getting away with that. When he's called out on the Mackenzie Bog, he's going to come out on the Mackenzie Bog, and he's going to speak that people are getting deadly sick, and what bureaucrats in the city are doing it. And my government will step in and seize it and take it away, and you'll be paying the dime. This is what David Eby did to clubhouses. Remember, he was going to go in and get them because they were illegally operated. It was Pam and the insider bureaucrats that were doing this. Ron Funk has to be made an example, because all other developers have to play by the rules and have to pay out of their pockets, and some of them barely get by or they break even. But this man walked into this town and did this. This is how he could say on the Vaquero Ranch, before it was even approved by council or anybody, coming soon, because he knew council was going to pass his stuff, because he read him for mayor and read him for council, and was Darren Brown showed it. We got to go after a man like this, because if he did it in this sound and walked over residents, he's doing it in Chilliwack and everywhere. Forensic audits will open the city on everybody. And make no mistake, because I've been talking to a lot of mayors. I know that Ken Pop-Up's not running. I know all these things. This shockwave has scared everybody. Make no mistake that this kind of behavior had bureaucrats being paid off because Magna did an infraction this when she was called out. They didn't give them one infraction because Magna was scared that Henry would phone and say, Ross, get her out of there. We're going to make sure that we go into them and forensic audit too, because these bureaucrats work. Dave Lowens ain't quitting because Dave Lowens quitting. He's very important that Henry keeps him there for the official community plan. They're trying to get another guy from out of the establishment, out of these groups. You can't step up and just run like Grianne. I showed you what they were going to do to that poor girl, and that's why we linked in to help her. You got to come from the Chamber of Commerce, or you got to come from Archway, and this is Amic Moran. We're going to train him. Why did he announce he was running? Because already the staff of the city told me Dave Lowens is going to announce he's quitting, so they're retraining this dog to take his spot. And it's not going to happen no more. Councils are going to learn when they're doing this that they're going to face the law and be charged. And that is why I'm making an adamant when Darren Brown showed me that these bureaucrats were being paid off and they weren't doing their jobs and they were endangering the general community, like I showed you yesterday on Manny Farms. Thousands and thousands of people's lives put in jeopardy. And we got Abbotsford Police telling you and seniors that he will get Jake's towing and tow you if you're outside and you're protesting, and he'll get Jake's towing. But yesterday, old Gertie Purdy couldn't take Jake's towing and go down by road and sees all them cars, because Gertie Purdy knows the establishment was running that, and that's a cash cow, and it's all illegal. And Colin Watts was looking for some Easter egg up at Henry's backside again, and Paul Walker was pushing on his tractor in the Abbotsford residence, and he said he cared about this community. Really, really, really. He really cared about this community with all them little kids in harm's way and illegally. And that needs to be stopped. It needs to be a fair playing ground. And Abbotsford voters and seniors and people need to go in to their MLAs and MPs and say, listen, this is what happened and I'm being threatened. And right now, stuff like rolling off Gertie Purdy and Abbotsford Police won't have a chance to have their safety standards investigated. There'll be so much habit and so much done on them, they'll be let go. You can't cover up. There's no sympathy that we need the Abbotsford Police, you know, they're needed. It's a buddy-buddy system, and this is how it got out of hand. They weren't calling each other out. They weren't holding each other accountable. You need to go to work before you come to these institutions, like I did for Mike Dakota, and you'll know the superintendent, the first aid, the project manager, the owner, the city, and all them are going to hold you accountable, so you better play by all the rules. The first aid guy, he doesn't send somebody to the hospital. 4 days later, gangrene sets in, compensations in there, and now coming after the company. So the first aid guy insists, sir, you got to go to the doctors, you got to go to the hospital, it's above my level 3, you got to get your arm looked at. This wasn't taking place. And Colin Watts and his police force cut his arms off, he cut his legs off, and he's got nothing to stand on, and he figures if he crawls in Superman Gale's office and begs about this company, it ain't, it's out of hand. Henry took it and shut it down in the city and took it for these things. And Henry Brown can't walk free. Mike DeYoung can't walk free, and neither can Ed Fast. And we need to make sure that's going to be held accountable. And we need to make sure that our new leader that's coming in says he cares about you and not political insight and influence. And you know, Yuir, if you just listen to me, you know how much money's at stake and what we can be doing. And we're going to go after that. That is what makes this so good about BC1 and this guy tagging up. And this is what makes it good for Abbotsford voters, but it makes it good for BC. I'm live. Ron Funka Diverse, Abbotsford, British Columbia.